Today, we are going to make some grass. No, I'm not in Colorado, so it's not going to be that kind of grass. It's our techniques that are so simple and sensible, your models will practically build themselves. Hello folks, it's Mad Dog Merv. Today we're going to talk a little bit about a train, something a little bit different from what we've done before. But we are going to talk about the Big Boy, the Big Boy locomotive. And there's a couple of really nice ones out in the HO scale, but they're very expensive. If you're going to run them on your layout, that's great, and use them a lot because, well, they're a lot of money. But I really wanted something just as a showpiece, something I could put on the layout that would look really, really neat, and not necessarily have to break the bank to do. So I used the Revell Germany Big Boy kit that's in HO scale. Bought it for 20 bucks. I mean, you can't beat that. We're going to go over some of the problems with it and some of the things I did on the build and some of the things I did wrong on the build because, well, this is the first time I've ever built a locomotive. But stick with us and check out my HO scale Big Boy.
So here is our goal. Up at the Ogden Union Station Museum is this O scale Big Boy, and we want ours to look like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up the kit, which is from Revell of Germany. It is in HO scale. It cost me $20 at MRS Hobby locally. It's been in the past released by Revell as well, but its current incarnation is Revell Germany, and fairly easy to get on eBay and some other places. So let's open up the box and let's take a look and see. And first thing I notice is that the body is one piece. Unfortunately, all the grab irons and everything is molded in, so that's kind of a bummer. Same with the tender, but the tender body itself is one piece, so that's pretty good. This is going to be a fairly easy and straightforward build, which I like. I'm not a big builder, so I like straight and easy builds. And kind of here's a parts rundown. Looks like it's going to be not too bad to do. There's 2 sprues is all there is. So as far as the building part, pretty simple and straightforward. It even comes with some track that we can put it on. So I'm looking forward to this. It looks pretty easy. I'm going to pull out the decals and look at those, and it's got an option for 2 different Big Boys. That's neat, and they actually look really good. So looking at the plastic, it's just nice black plastic. I think before I even get started, I'm going to go ahead and do some basic painting. And for this model, I am just going to use a rattle can of this quick color. It's a nice flat black. It's very similar to the locomotive black that you would buy from some of the model companies. And I'm going to go ahead and give the whole thing one coat of this. And it actually looks great when it's done, and I'm ready to start assembling and putting things together. So the first thing I assemble is the main wheels for the locomotive, and I want to weigh them down, so I'm going to put some little metal weights in there because this is going to be really, really lightweight if I don't do something to try and weigh it down a bit, and I'm afraid it might topple over on the train board. These weights are just some little square nuts that I got from a box of nuts and bolts that I had. So after those are put in, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to paint the rims kind of a chrome silver, and I'm going to paint the push rods and whatnot in kind of an aluminum color. So my wheel assemblies will be all done. Now I'm going to get some weights from 700 scale ships that I have just laying around, and I'm going to throw some of that in the bottom of the boiler to try and weigh this boiler down. Again, I want to try and get as much weight as I can down low because it's a big hollow piece of plastic, and I'm afraid it's just going to fall over on the table anytime that the wind blows. So I want to have it a little bit more stable. So I'm going to take my Dremel tool and a drill bit, and I'm going to try and drill out these areas between the that are molded in. I thought, it's terrible to have this molded in, but these areas that are molded in between the grab irons and the boiler, and let's see how that goes. And you can see here the finished product on one side. Not terribly happy with it, I really didn't want to go and have to use the brass rod because, well, there's some pros and cons to, either way. But let's finish it up and see how it looks from here. And here we are at the very end. Not too bad. I'm going to have to clean it up a bit with the X-Acto knife and then maybe give it a little bit better evaluation then. So here is the finished product, and it's not perfectly straight. I don't know. I really think I'm just going to have to go ahead and cut them off. They still look a little bit thick. And here's the other side. Now, one thing I did decide I wanted to do on this is if you look down in the uptakes for the smoke box, it's just big and open. And I really wanted to put some trunking down there. So I went ahead and took some tube styrene that was the appropriate size and just glued the appropriate length inside of the smoke box so that if you look down in there, well, that's what you see. So I didn't like those handrails. I'm going to go ahead and cut them all off. And I'm using here some brass rod in 0.25 for the linkages and 0.20 for the grab handles. And I'm going to go ahead and super glue that on the whole thing. So I think it's going to look a whole lot better if I do it that way. And then looking towards the front of the locomotive, oh yeah, this is definitely the way to go. A little bit more work. You could drill out each one of these holders or whatever you want to call them, but I just went ahead and snipped the end, went ahead and put the wires over and put a little buildup of super glue on it. And I think it's going to look okay. I just don't know how durable it'll be. So the back of the cab, I went ahead and painted the green inside of the cab, and I painted some of the details on the back of the boiler. There's not a whole lot in this kit, but it does have some. You're not going to see a lot of it, but I wanted to make sure I had that done anyway. And then I'm going to have to cut some acetate, some clear acetate, to put on the inside of the window panes here in just a little bit, but give you some idea where we're at there. So now we're going to move to the tender, and I'm going to use some more of those weights for my 700 scale ships and throw those in the bottom of the tender to try and get some weight in there. The wheels were simple. They just pop right in. Went ahead and painted the silver around the rims. Here's the top, and I'm going to need to remove these grab irons and put some actual metal ones in. But I didn't like the way the coal looked, and so what I've done is I took some chunk coal from Woodland Scenics and just some glue, put it in the top of the tender here, glued it in, let it dry, and well, you'll see the results. I really like the way it looks. So we went ahead and assembled the rest of the locomotive. I mean, it's so simple to put together, it really is. It takes a few hours to assemble this thing, and then do some of the painting in the edge of the walkways and things like that. So here's how it looks. Not too bad. And the track that's in it, just two pieces, assemble it, throw some ballast on it to make it look a little more realistic, and paint it up. And here's how that turned out. Not too bad. Did a little work on the ties to make those look better. So I'm okay with this.
Well, you can see these grab irons here turned out pretty darn good. And what we did here on the top, now yes, I've still got to work on the firebox here a little bit, the smoke box I mean, and I'm going to be doing some weathering. We're actually going to do that at MRS Hobby, and you'll have to stick with MRS and kind of see what we do there. But you can see those grab handles actually turned out amazing. Now, in the instructions, there's these parts right here. Let's point them out. Right here. This part right here. It shows as an extra part that you don't need to use. Well, I was trying to figure out where the heck it went, and in looking at pictures of the real locomotive, I found out, well, it goes right there. So that was kind of an easy thing. I don't know why they omitted it from the instructions. I think that's kind of crazy. And also, you'll notice I had to add this this arm right here. Had to completely scratch build that because, well, it didn't even come with the kit. So, wow, that's, that is kind of strange. But you can see how this has turned out, at least to this point. Now, we still have to do our weathering. But pre-weathering, here's where we're at. Now, we've added these grab handles as well. And on the tender, well, we just opened those up. Yeah, I could have done a little bit better job on that one, you can see. But there's how the coal looks on the tender. I still need to do these grab irons up here, so I'll take care of that. But all of the rest of these have been added back here in the back, including a lens for the light. So there. So, wow, this thing's massive. That thing cool. I also have this this caboose from that era that we're going to be putting with it. And actually it has a KD coupler on one side, so we'll be able to couple it right up. We'll be able to couple it right up there once I get the rest of the track laid.
Here's kind of a rear view of the tender, and I really do like how this thing looks and sits, especially that coal. That chunk coal just makes this whole thing. Well, now it's time to do some weathering because this is way too clean. So I'm going to take my airbrush and some very light gray, and I'm going to paint some bands around the engine itself, and here on the tender do some kind of streaking. Now if you go to the MRS Facebook page, and there's a link on my page here, you can go there, you can go to the videos, and you can see where I actually step by step went ahead and weathered this whole thing up using these pigments, particularly the dark brown and the rust and the white, and the areas that I used those in, and dirtied it up. I didn't want to over dirty it, but I wanted to make it look like it had been on a couple of runs before it was cleaned. And then I took my airbrush and went ahead and sealed all of that in with some flat Tamiya clear. Alright, so let's take a look at the finished product here. And you can see on the top of the cab I used a little bit of that rust color to just, well, Mars brown, to kind of get it a little bit rusty looking. Used a lot of grime around the smoke box, and some of the white, or the titanium color, to simulate the area where the steam comes out. So grimied up the bottom of the truck's really good on this as well. And you can see I've used some of those same colors here on the tender, and wow, that coal looks good. I've got a little figure hopping into the cab, and I've actually got an engineer already sitting in the cab. You just can't see him very well, so not too bad. Finished product looks pretty darn good. And then this angle from the back, you can see I've got one of the brakemen hopping on the back of the tender here. So thanks for joining us.